Hi, this is Nicholas Chen, and this is my vlog on Boyfriend Dungeon. The premise of this game is honestly insane. It's a world where you have to date and wield other people who also turn into weapons, while you go through a dungeon crawling extravaganza, trying to go deeper and deeper as the dungeons themselves represent the fears that the player has. There's a whole bunch of different weapons that you can date and wield. They all have different personalities. I think one of the biggest strengths is the gameplay loop between having to go through the dungeons, leveling up your characters, or leveling up the rank between your characters, and then going on dates with them, where you learn about the characters more and more. They all have different playstyles and different passives, which also lead into their personalities as well. It's a very fun premise. And to add on to that, the dialogue for each character is very fun as well. There's all these different personality types, so even if you're not a big fan of one character or not a huge fan of using a weapon of that said character, then you can always go and change their different character. The premise also includes dating around and talk to people, so it's kind of, I would say, recommended that you try a whole bunch of variety of different things. There's a lot of inclusivity in this game as well, tying into the gender topic, that you can choose any pronouns. The outfit options are not limited to any sort of gender, and there's a lot of warnings as well as the mom character, which you could also include if you don't feel like doing that. Along with that, there's also the fun visuals and the art style, which honestly during the dungeon run it's a little frustrating sometimes. I'd say that half the battle sometimes is figuring out where there's enemies, and the camera angle sometimes hides enemies as well, so it's a little frustrating to hit a bad projectile that you can't see. I think given it a little bit of time and familiarity with the system, then you get used to it, and then you can of course play better, but I feel like if at the very beginning of the game it's hard to jump into it. A very direct parallel to this game would be Hades, which is another visual novel / dungeon crawling type adventure. However, there's a lot of differences, which I'm obviously used to Hades, that are very different. I feel like the roll option isn't as good in this game, because you can't roll through enemies or cross terrain, so it makes it a little bit harder just to adjust, at least personally. But the characters are very fun. The weapons are extremely diverse. I think this weapon in particular has a passive where every time you do the full range attack like that, then it stuns the next character. So you can stun lock basically the last character or last enemy in each area. Obviously the main draw of this game is the narrative, but I found the gameplay actually, once you get past all the little irregularities, to be incredibly exhilarating. There's a lot of fun combos to do. There's the mixing of to the light and heavy combats that really bring together a sense of connectedness between the combat systems. I would also say that the little designs thing, which I wasn't a fan of personally at the beginning of the game because it's hard to use them correctly, added another layer of strategy to the game. This one I'm using right now is the mine one, so when I put it down, enemies start attacking instead of me. And there's a whole variety of these different designs as well. So there's one like a fireball, which they start you off with, but my favorite one so far is the mine trap, which blows up on proximity while you have to place it down. Another interesting part of this game is the health regain system, which is connected to drinks, which is also very fun because you can choose between 4 different drinks that you'd like, such as I'm preferring they have it set to boba, but you can also have it to coffee or tea or soda. But in any case, it's interesting because you have to start using them. You can only have up to 3. You can only, and it doesn't just, instead of having just a larger health bar, you have to restock and then use them in battle. So even if you forget to use them, you're kind of out of luck if you forget to use them and just die in the middle of a dungeon. Going back to the main premise of the game, though, I feel like this is the dungeon crawling part, which is a well enough game, but brings it home for me is the obvious narrative aspect. So the idea is that you're here for a summer and you're fighting your own fears, but it's really character driven. The dialogue is incredibly snappy and to the point, and it really feels like you're getting to explore. Here's an example. So Seven, the character here, is actually a K-pop star, but you, the character as the player, don't understand his popularity. So he finds that kind of interesting that, you know, there's someone he would hang out with that isn't, you know, a huge super fan of his. You get to see a lot in his dialogue that he's always inundated with all these people like fanboying over him, and so really you get to know him as a person. It's very subtle, but in Seven's case, it's he usually talks very much less, and then when he actually does talk like this, it's very much a different feeling that you usually get from him.
What?
It's those little personality aspects that keep popping up again. They keep showing how much attention is brought to the characters and the narrative design. Another big aspect is the date system, or the gift system in crafting. So you can also craft items that give you different effects. So the one I'm wearing now is the hat. It has an effect where if I get hit by an enemy, they're stunned. Which I guess is a little redundant with the weapon I'm using right now, but so you get a little bunch of different crafting tools, so you can also craft not only weapons, or items rather, like health, but also things to level up your characters faster, to get to their relationship status up as well. And it's also kind of a mini game inside of that is where you get to explore what each character likes and doesn't like, and you can usually get a feel for the personalities, but sometimes there's a few things that don't show. So such as there's the Seven again, for his example, he can't eat anything. He's not allowed to because his agent for his K-pop group is watching his weight, making sure that he has to stay fit. So he doesn't accept any health item or food items. All in all, it's a very fun experience. And I haven't gotten too far into the dungeon. I'm only on the 11th floor right now. I assume there's multiple dungeons in this game, but to show another example, here is Valeria, who has a completely different playstyle. While Seven's is about oops. Seven's is about hitting and stunning characters and doing AoE damage. Valeria's is about backstabbing and rolling around the enemies to confuse them. And it kind of shows in her character as well. She's very much like a sarcastic trickster person in her dialogues. I was saying earlier that it's very much a different experience, or I haven't gone too far into the story yet, but I'm still interested in to see where it's going to go and how many different dungeons there's going to be. I've had some gripes, I would say, that sometimes it feels like it gets hurt by the dating premise. I think that, I guess personally, my experience with dating is just very monogamous, so it feels kind of odd to keep it in a kind of dating context for each of the characters. Even if I like them, I'd rather, focus on one at a time, and it feels a little strange to me as personally, but it's enjoyable enough that you can just disregard that experience for a second and then go by with it. All in all, it's a very fun game, and very much recommend playing this game if you like dungeon shooters and also visual novels.